pressing the record button now, and we're going to get things moving. But before we start in earnest, you heard briefly NAPE President Joe Green discussing the weather. He's a man of many talents, including national weatherman.
No, I'm not a meteorologist, but continue. I like your I like your perspective, Gregory.
We all multitask in this work, but I'm going to allow Joe to just offer a few words of welcome before we get things rolling. Joe?
I'm not going to spend too much time because I'm here to listen to Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Equitable Learning Practices. Kathy Albin, who is a champion, ally, advocate for equity, is someone who I really endorse. I've loved just building a relationship with her over the past year, and I look forward to what she has to say to all of us. Thank you very much for coming, Kathy.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. So, as I was sharing a little earlier, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Hopefully this will work. Yeah. The purpose of these meetings is part of something that we call member engagement. And member engagement is something I refer to as M2M, member-to-member connections. And our goal, as you can see here, is to support members through discovery, connection, and taking action. We find ways to learn and implement and innovate in ways that improve our day-to-day work and has the potential to positively impact our peers and partners in the field. And that's through these 3 stages of engagement that we try to build through these meetings and other ways. And it's through what I call discover, connect, and take action. Discover, which is exchanging knowledge about what works and what doesn't. Connecting, which is through adapting equity solutions that create and sustain new partnerships as needed. Meetings like this are an opportunity for us to connect. And taking action, which is implementing solutions, monitoring progress through policy solutions, and continuously improve through advocacy. And many of you who've worked with our public policy committee can appreciate how that role plays in our member engagement. So this is just one example of how we are engaging members. I'm going to walk through very quickly what our agenda will be for today. We're going to spend a little time learning from Kathy Albin, our guest speaker, who's going to introduce herself and share a little bit on her affiliation, where she's coming from, where she's been, and her experience with this work. Something we call the NAPE origin story. All of us have some kind of story on how we got involved in this network called NAPE. And so Kathy is going to take an opportunity to share her origin story. You might find it's very similar to yours. She's going to walk through a snapshot of the Micro Messaging Academy, which is one of our premier professional learnings. It's something that's more than a one day or a few hours, but it's actually a multi-day NAPE learning experience. This is not designed to be a PD, so she's just going to offer a snapshot of her experience with the Academy and what were some of her key takeaways. And then she's going to dive deeper into equitable learning practices and some of the applications that she and her team used in her institution, in this case, post-secondary. And then she'll walk through sharing out that experience, not only within the institution, but within her region and nationally, and building on that experience that she had through the Micro Messaging Academy. And then lastly, I'm going to come in and tie in how her experiences are connected to NAPE member engagement and how she shifted from this learning experience to playing a bigger role within NAPE and working with other members like yourself on various committees, including the executive committee. And then we'll wrap things up by just offering an opportunity for you to put in your calendar March 22nd, which we'll do a final NAPE member meeting which will be a preview of the National Summit. And your friend here on the call, Joe Green, as well as some other folks from NAPE, will be previewing the summit on March 22nd. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Kathy Albin.
Thank you, Greg. Gregory, do you want to just give a quick overview of the Academy on this slide here?
Sure, yeah, I'll do that. This is something that you experienced and we actually both shared in. This is part of what was a funded initiative from NSF ATE, which was referred to EE STEM, which was really an opportunity that was given to NAPE members from across the country to participate in a micro-messaging academy that ultimately would have an impact in fueling the STEM pipeline, particularly for non-tribe populations. And so within it, one of the core features was what we called the Summer Institute. It was 4 days of training that were held at host sites in Ohio and in New Mexico. There were 2 cohorts that were held, and a lot of great data came out of that. And in the handouts that will come as a result, I can share with you some of the outcomes of the Summer Institute. There were professional learning communities, PLCs, that held meetings virtually throughout the year with a local lead who, within the participating institutions, worked on an action research project where they identified areas for improvement to meet the goals of fueling and creating improvements in the STEM classroom. So, these were 2 key components of the Micro-Messaging Academy. There were many tools and resources that were shared, including some of our signature NAPE workbooks that are used in our professional learning workbook, but there were other workbooks that were associated with that. And again, in the handouts, I will refer to those. If you want to learn more about the Micro-Messaging Academy, I will make sure that you all have links and can understand where you need to go to learn more and to look at exploring that as an opportunity for you. One of the key signature features of the Micro-Messaging Academy is the capstone showcase. And so as they worked on their action research project, each of the participating institutions in this particular EE STEM funded initiative presented their findings, sharing their results, and with the entire community. And folks had an opportunity to offer feedback, to share some promising practices, and look at how they would apply some of the results that came out of the showcase. One of the interesting features, and one reason why Kathy is joining us today, is that she's taken all these different components and took it to the next level. And so here's an opportunity for us to learn from her and to hear from her firsthand how she's taken this experience and applied it and then taken it to another level. So now I will turn it over. Is it okay for me to turn it over to you now, Kathy?
Absolutely, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for the lead in, Gregory.
All right.
All right, welcome again, everyone. I am so happy to be here and share with all of you my experiences with NAPE over the course of the past 4, heading on 5 years. I see the names of several colleagues that I met through this work that are joining us today. And this is a very casual environment. I invite you to, take yourself off of mute if you have questions as I kind of talk through this today. So as Gregory mentioned, I took part in the 2nd cohort of the EE STEM down in New Mexico. And unlike probably most of the origin stories, mine is unique in that I had just been hired on by the institution that I was working for, North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene. I came from the Coeur d'Alene tribe, working for a tribal organization managing a federal grant. And when I got to the NIC campus, I happened to walk into my office space to some of the toolkits that Gregory had mentioned on the previous slide. And I actually have them because I use them still very frequently. And so when I came into my office space at NIC, I, of course, as anyone does, settling into the first day, kind of looked over the materials that were on my desk, and I had my dean at the time come in and ask how my day was going. And I had inquired about NAPE as an organization and asked her if I would be having the opportunity to work with this organization, because much of what I had kind of paged through and read just in an hour or so just made so much sense. And I came from the K-12 system and then to the tribal organization. So when I was paging through these toolkits, I'm like, this is, you know, something that as a teacher, I definitely used, would like to use more of in my practice. And when I asked her, she said, well, we really need somebody to serve as our project lead for this NAPE work. Would you be interested in going down to New Mexico in 2 weeks? So I went home and told my husband, I'm heading down to New Mexico and I get to be the project lead for North Idaho College on the NAPE project. So I was only 2 weeks in, and I was heading on a plane with 3 of my colleagues from North Idaho College that I had never met before. And we went down and participated in a 4-day intensive professional development opportunity that truly changed my life, not only on a personal level, but also a professional level. So I'm going to share that story with all of you today. And I know that some of my colleagues that I've worked with in the past have been part of this journey, have heard this journey. So again, I invite anybody to unmute and just talk through this as I work my way through. So this first slide here is just once we came back from the experience down in New Mexico, we were tasked with bringing together a team to conduct the capstone project and the action research project, as Gregory had mentioned on the previous slide. And so as the lead and new to the institution, I wasn't sure how I was going to go about this. I did, when I worked for the Coeur d'Alene tribe, build some strong relationships with several of the department chairs at North Idaho College in the work that I had been engaged in between the tribe and North Idaho College. And I instantly thought, okay, perfect. I'm going to reach out to those division chairs that I, know and tell them about NAPE and my experience that the 4 of us had just had down in Doña Ana, and ask them for recommendations of faculty that they might be able to recommend that would want to take on this project with us. So we really had some kind of intentional focus on STEM and CTE, also gender non-traditional students. The role that I was serving in at North Idaho College at the time was the Center for New Directions, where I had the opportunity to work with single parents and displaced homemakers and gender non-traditional students in a variety of navigation. We also looked at low enrollment courses and courses that had high attrition rates, and also gateway courses. You will see that photo over on the right there is some of the bulletin boards we created as part of our project on self-efficacy. Go ahead, Greg, if you could advance the slide, please. So one of the roles that we served is we wanted to come back once this team of 12 faculty were formed and share out the content that we had learned down in New Mexico. And it really focused around what was called the culture wheel, and it included these bulleted items over on the left: the cultural stereotypes, implicit bias, micromessaging, growth mindset, self-efficacy. And it talked about how we as educators have the opportunity to interrupt this cycle of inequity that can happen within the classroom space. And so we started out by providing some professional development to our team members. And we, again, use the toolkits that are identified on this slide and that I've talked about several times. They kind of became my best friend. And I was pulling them out again today and realizing I have sticky notes and notes all over each of the different toolkits. So I definitely use them when we were providing this professional development to our colleagues. Gregory, next slide, please. So when the group of us got together, we wanted to have some intentional action research projects that we were going to be focusing on so that we could present as our capstone at the end of spring semester. We met for the first time at the end of August. We took part in the academy in July. And so we were able to bring this team together at the end of August for the first time. And once we started sharing our experience down in New Mexico, one of the faculty members had talked about how they don't understand what the self-efficacy of their students coming into this faculty in particular was a STEM faculty member. And so we decided to develop a 3-question self-efficacy survey. And with that, we surveyed students in the beginning of the semester, in the middle of the semester, and at the end of the semester, focusing on the 3 questions that you have before you on this slide. And we started documenting the information that we received back from those surveys, trying to see if some of the projects and tools that we were implementing into the classroom had an effect on our students' self-efficacy. One of those projects that we designed was what we called positivity postcards. And the idea came from NAPE, and it was developed as kudos cards. And this was an example that they shared with us at our academy. And when we were sharing out with the 12 faculty members that we had asked to be part of this group, we were, sharing the toolkit and the kudos cards, and everybody really seemed to kind of latch on to the kudos cards. And we thought, well, how can we make this our own? And so what we ended up doing was redesigning the kudos cards, and we ended up calling them positivity postcards. And I'm going to do a little deeper dive, as Gregory had mentioned, and share with you a little more about that process. Also, something that kind of came organically through this work was a professional development course that we ended up offering to 2 cohorts of faculty. The first one had 24 students in it, and the second had 18. They were faculty members. And these were graduate level courses. It was a 2-credit course. And much of what we did in that course was based upon the work that we did with the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity. We used the book Teach Students How to Learn by Dr. Sandra Yancey McGuire, and really talking about mindset, motivation, metacognition, learning strategies, providing faculty with resources on campus that they might not have been aware of. Center for New Direction being one of those resources. And then obviously the continual focus on student success as we worked our way through that graduate level course. Gregory, next slide, please.
Before we move to the next slide, I wanted to see if toss it out to the participants on the call if they had any questions about the action research project that you put together, or just from where we are now. Are there any questions that anybody has about what you just shared up to this point?
Or have anything similar that maybe you?
I have a statement and a question, Kathy.
Sure, Joe.
So I take it that, are you going to talk about maybe the outcomes about the book, Teach Students How to Learn? Was there any sort of debriefing after the book was read by folks and what were some of the things that were said. And then also the metacognition, if you can define that term for me, please.
So the professional development course that we developed was, so one of the other faculty members that taught this course with me was engaged in the work with NAPE. So she was on the action research team. And I actually happened to have this book by Sandra Yancey-McGuire sitting on my desk. And as a K-12 educator, it caught my attention. And when it was sitting on my desk, another faculty member happened to be walking down the hallway and saw it on my desk. And I didn't know this faculty member at the time. And she pointed to my book and gave me a thumbs up. And so I inquired about who this faculty member was. And come to find out that she was our K-12 educator at North Idaho College, teaching students how to become teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the three of us connected and designed this professional development course. And then we used some of the strategies that we learned in our NAPE work along with this book to help
Oh,
guide us.
yes, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. So then the mindset, the motivation, the metacognition, the learning strategies were all part of Sandra Yancey-McGuire's textbook. So metacognition specifically is talking about, our way of thinking.
Yes.
And so those are some of the strategies that we implemented into our professional development course that we offered to faculty members at North Idaho College. But again, I have to say that this would never have happened without NAPE and the connection, that I made with those faculty members. So this brought a huge opportunity to faculty at NIC.
Mm. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I'm curious to see how well it was received and some of the other observations you've made after doing this professional development course among the teachers there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
So moving back to kind of the idea of self-efficacy, we know that we did our 3-question survey. And so we decided to create these positivity postcards that you see using the NIC colors, the branding, to kind of redesign the kudos cards that we had learned about at the Academy. And I always share this story, and I think it's so funny to share. As we pulled these faculty members together and we were sitting at a long conference table, we started talking about design elements and font styles and quotes that we wanted to use. And it was unbelievable to me how vocal everybody was about the font style and what they wanted that to look like and how much of an investment they were already starting to put into these tools that we were going to implement. And I got really excited in watching, I wouldn't call them arguments, but definitely very opinionated voices that were coming to the table about what verbiage to use on these postcards. So we were very proud of these 4 that we designed and came up with. And again, creating the partnerships with our communications and marketing department on campus as we kind of design these out. And what we did is we tied in, again, the work that we learned down at the Academy from NAPE. And that was something that we learned called wise feedback. And I think that we can all probably recall when we were in maybe younger elementary school where we would get an assignment back from a teacher and they would write up in the top corner, way to go, Julie, nice work, Joe, way to go, Gregory, with an exclamation mark, sometimes maybe a sticker. And we took that idea, but elevated up to wise feedback, which is really praising the process and not the ability of what the student was doing in our classroom, giving them timely and frequent feedback on whether it was an assignment or an exam. And so we use these postcards and paired that with the wise feedback skills that we learned throughout our work with NAPE. We gave them very specific and informative feedback. We were very respectful in how we did that. We tried to use growth-minded language as we communicated that feedback to students. And then again, using some prompting strategies instead of, answering. So I'm going to share some student stories that resulted from us implementing these positivity postcards in our classrooms. So this first example is a student that I had the opportunity to work with. Her name was Jeanette. She was a homeless student when she came to visit me. She was living out of her vehicle. She came from a rural community south of Coeur d'Alene, couldn't afford a place to live, did not have a job, and didn't know where to come. So somebody had referred her to the Center for New Directions at North Idaho College. And we really started off from square one, kind of talking about what she wanted to do, if she had any idea of a career path. And she had mentioned to me that she always wanted to drive truck and earn her CDL. And as many of us know, the cost of that training can be pretty significant. And we reached out to our workforce training center and inquired about scholarship opportunities and some other funding options that maybe would be helpful as this individual really wanted to take this on as her career path. So we were practicing implementing these positivity postcards in our work, and I had sent Jeanette this postcard, and you can read it there. I just wanted to compliment her on the fact that she had started to take the first steps in filling out her WIOA application for some additional funding opportunities. And I used this word resilient. I said, "You are one of the most resilient people I have ever met." And after I gave her this postcard, she actually shared with me that she wasn't very familiar with the word resilient and wanted to understand what that meant. And so we talked about the word resilient and resiliency. And as she went through her training, she kept having some kind of difficulties in communicating with her trainers. And we talked about why that might be happening. She came from a very abusive relationship, and she struggled with some of the trainers that were working with her in earning her CDL. And she had sent me a text shortly after she had received, so she earned her CDL, and she was going down to try and get a job in Utah. And on her way down, her car broke down, and she had sent me a text and told me, my car broke down. If I recall, I think she had actually hit a deer and it had severely damaged her vehicle. And I said, "Well, come on back, we'll figure something out." And she says, "Come back? I'm not coming back. I'm going to take a bus and I'm going down there to get this job." And I said, "Well, could you please text me when you get down there, just so I know you made it?" When she got down there, this is actually a screenshot of the message that she sent me that just said resilient with a smiley face. And so, that told me what the power of these positivity postcards could do for students who were receiving them. Next slide, please, Gregory. And again, this is another example. Dr. Liz Zinker was on our NAPE research team, and she started implementing these. She taught anatomy and physiology at the college, which, as many of you know, is a very challenging course. Many of our pre-nursing students, really need to get an A or high B out of anatomy and physiology. So Liz started using these before and after exams, and really trying to promote the idea of wise feedback for her students. And over to the right on this slide is just a comment that Liz received back from one of her students. And I just think it, captures all of it nicely, that she understood herself that the hard work was paying off, and that was validation enough, but then recognized it's always nice to know that your professor notices that you're really putting in the effort. So we started making anecdotal notes of this process for us as faculty implementing this into our courses. Next slide, please, Gregory.
Before I do, I wanted to see if anyone on the call had any thoughts, or does this resonate with them? Are there some similar examples where you've applied something of this nature? Just wanted to pause before we shifted to the next slide, see if there was any thoughts or.
I see Julie and Moon. I don't mean to call you out. If you have any thoughts about, as I've shared this with both of you, if you tried anything like this using the WISE feedback with NAPE.
Hi, this is Julie. I'll comment. We have not, it seems like there's always something, but as Kathy mentioned, I've heard her present on this information one other time before. And I guess I don't know, cliche, the proof is in the pudding. The way it has encouraged students is phenomenal, and it is something. In fact, I was jabbering my coworker who's also on the call, and it is definitely something that CEI will be moving forward with in the very near future. Where I'm jotting down instructors I would like to get involved. So it's amazing. It's really good stuff. NAPE's done a good job with it.
So that's perfect, Julie. I appreciate that comment. One of our colleagues at Idaho State University, Julie's at College of Eastern Idaho. One of our colleagues that I had the opportunity to share out with at Idaho State University, I do know that they modeled and also created their own positivity postcards, or take on the positivity postcards. I can't remember if Julie or Buna, if you recall, if they called it Tiger Tracks or Tiger. There was something that they associated with ISU, but I do know that they also implemented this at their institution.
Yeah, I can't remember the name either. And I kind of wonder, they've had such turnover there where they're at with it. But yeah, happy to find out if anybody's interested. But I love Kathy's idea where she took the NAPE cards and marketed them specific to their institution and added the quotes and things like that. And they're just super powerful. It's a good thing.
Thanks, Julie. So when I presented this out to different pockets of the campus community, the Adult Education Center on campus decided that they too wanted to design their own positivity postcards, thinking that the ones that we had implemented might not be the same language with the population of students that they were working with. So they created as a team and designed the postcards that you see here on this slide. And I will tell you that I firmly believe after my work with Center for New Direction, I was hired as the director of the Adult Education Center at North Idaho College. And I truly believe that it was my work with NAPE and being able to share out to the campus community that allowed me to move from that navigator role into the director role at that institution. And I can't tell you how well NAPE and the idea of what we were sharing with the toolkits was received at that institution. So the previous director to me created the postcards modeled after what we as a team had made, but then I got to see them come into fruition when I became the director of the Adult Education Center, and we continued as a team to use these postcards in the classroom. And this picture to your right is a student that I developed a deep relationship with, and it happened as a result of sending him a postcard in the classroom setting, and him coming and sharing with me what that meant to him. And he and his sister, and I'll share a picture of it later. He had a sister back in Arkansas, and they were both kind of very competitive about who was going to receive their GED first. And so we talked often, and then his sister, who he had not seen for many, many years, actually came to Idaho last summer, and we met and had coffee. And again, the relationship developed because of these positivity postcards that were used in the classroom setting. So there's Stephen with his 3 children getting his GED last year. So this is just one more success story that I would like to share with all of you, that I truly believe NAPE had a huge hand in developing. This is the story of Melanie, and she now goes by Mel. Mel came to see me when I was with the Center for New Direction, and it was at the start of COVID, and she sent me a picture of herself along with her 5 children that you see in the lower right hand of this screen. And she had came from, she was a domestic violence survivor, severe domestic violence. And she had sent me a picture of herself with her 5 children and said that she needed help finding a new career path, had no idea where to start. And the college had just been given a scholarship opportunity called the Metallica Scholars. It was with the band Metallica, and they believe very much in career and technical education programs. And the college had submitted an application, and we put our priority as the students that I was serving in the Center for New Direction at the forefront of that scholarship application, and we were the recipients. And so we had just found out that we had received those dollars. And I asked Mel if she had ever thought about being in a non-traditional career field. And she says, well, I do like to work with my hands. And I did work out at a state park, helping change oil and things. So we started doing an interest inventory, and she ended up selecting diesel technology as her pathway. And you can see over on the left, during COVID, the coat that she is wearing was donated by a faculty member who I met through the NAPE work. And he had donated it to the Center for New Direction and said, you know, Kathy, I know that you will find the right person for this. And so the picture on the left is Mel putting this coat on when she was in my office. And then we spent 2 years. She not only got her certificate in diesel technology, she went on to get her Associate of Applied Science in diesel technology. And the picture that you see in the center is after her 2nd year, she put that coat on, and you can see physical transformation of the work that we did together through NAPE and growth mindset and building her self-efficacy. The rocks that you see in the upper left-hand corner were a project that we did with the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity work in those non-traditional career fields. So as an educator, these tools helped me immensely. And I just love this story of Mel. Her and I remain friends to this day. She's working for a company over in Coeur d'Alene, doing small engine repairs. So next slide, please, Greg. And then again, just the personal impact that NAPE has had on my personal and professional life, building connections with campus and tribal communities. I had shared that I came from the Coeur d'Alene tribe in managing a federal grant there, but I was able to reach back out to the tribe and connect the NAPE work that I was engaged in on campus and bring that down to some of the work that was happening with their summer youth program. And so again, that just provided so many opportunities for me to reconnect and re-engage with my tribal friends. And then the toolkits, as I've mentioned throughout, have really been a catalyst for ideas on what we can do with students, what we can do contextually within our classroom to help build self-efficacy and that growth mindset, and really critically look at our implicit bias that we bring into space and the micro messages that we give, you know, in all of our conversations that we have throughout our day. NAPE also has allowed me to meet people on a national level. Had the opportunity to present at an NSF ATE conference in October several years ago, and share out some of these stories. And then again, just the friends that I have made across the United States that I never would have connected with had it have not been for my experience with NAPE. Also, Julie and Muna are on. They're both from the state of Idaho. And I was able to present at our REACH conference down there to the Center for New Direction colleagues, and shared a PowerPoint and provided some professional development at that conference. And then again, I had mentioned the job advancement that I feel that I got as a result of this work. And then I had the most exciting opportunity to serve on the executive committee for the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity. This is my second year serving on the executive committee. I have learned so much and built so many friendships, learned ideas of what colleagues across the United States are doing to build equitable spaces in their classrooms, in their institutions. One of the ideas that we came up in a small group was a podcast that we called Reconnect, Reset, and Restart. Gregory will share some more details about that podcast and how the success of that has grown. I am now at a new institution over in Washington. It's called Spokane Falls Community College. And when I first got hired here last year, I'm the director of our learning support. I met with our new Dean of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and shared the work that I had been engaged in with NAPE. And so, as a result of that sharing, I am bringing 4 colleagues back who have never been introduced to NAPE. And we are going to go to the Equity Summit in April that Gregory will also share a little bit more about. And then I am now using the idea of the positivity postcards that were developed over at North Idaho College at Spokane Falls Community College in our learning support department. These pictures are just fun examples of there's Stephen with his sister that came back from Arkansas. She actually beat him in earning her GED. So they had kind of this, they were like 4 days apart. He shared at our GED graduation. And then one of the nursing students that I had the opportunity to connect with as a result of this work. And then 2 of my former tribal students from the Coeur d'Alene tribe that came up to North Idaho College to participate in a convention that was being held up on campus. So that's just the 3 of us together. So it's just meant so much to me as an educator, as a human being, as a colleague. It's truly changed my life.
Wow,
Greg, I think next slide.
Yeah, on the next slide. But before we transition to the next slide on member engagement, I just wanted to pause for a minute and thank you, Kathy. Just reading and just from what you shared with us on your NAPE experience, it definitely went well beyond the initial training experience that you had with our professional learning and the work that you did with the professional learning community, and taking this work and really applying it within your institution, but also in your region and nationally, just sharing out. I just appreciate you sharing your journey, and I wanted to pause for a minute just to acknowledge that. And I wanted to see if there are folks here on the call who may have had similar experiences that they wish to share with us. Have you had opportunities for NAPE training, and have you taken some of that work and innovated it in some unique ways and applied it in some unique ways and shared out to other departments outside the initial work? I just wanted to offer the opportunity for folks to unmute and perhaps share their own experiences if they wish to at this time.
Well, I do want to just mention one more thing, Gregory, and that is our state career and technical education director in Idaho State, Adrian San Miguel. He was a president of NAPE, past president of NAPE. Joe, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet Adrian. He's going to be at the summit this April. So if you haven't, I am excited for you to get that opportunity. Adrian was a catalyst in this work for us in Idaho. I had never been exposed to the level of language that this helped me navigate through conversations about work and equity. And I am so thankful for that opportunity. It opened my eyes to thoughts that I really have changed how I engage with students, using my preferred pronouns, talking about signature lines in my email. I would have never had the vocabulary of the language to be able to do that 4 years ago. So I just really cannot thank NAPE enough for providing this opportunity to us.
This is Julie. I'll second what Kathy has said. I think we've been really lucky in Idaho with the opportunities that the state has provided under Adrian's leadership for us to be involved. If anybody's on the call and is thinking about the summit, it is very much well worth your time. Really great information that is practical and easy to implement upon return. And just to kind of go back to the initial question, some of the things that we've done, because it can be, I guess, a big thing to implement, you know, what Kathy has done with kind of this large implementation across campus and things like that, even with a committee getting started. But NAPE has great resources. We have had success here. I've really enjoyed just even simple exercises with some people on our campus, like the startling statements. That one's always interesting as I'm married to a nurse. And so the disparity that comes out in that one, especially comparing males in healthcare to females and earning gaps and different things like that, is always an eye-opening experience. And the micro messaging and the implicit bias wheel, if anyone on the call has not used those in your campus, they are extremely powerful tools. And again, fairly easy to implement in an in-service workshop or something like that. So we appreciate the resources.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so I'm going to move to the next slide, but I'm going to piggyback off of where Kathy left off, which was transitioning from the work she's done on 2 different college campuses to working with the National Alliance for Partnerships in Equity. And I want to stress that NAPE is an alliance of partnerships in equity. It really is. And she's been a key partner and helped convene peers like yourself around these issues and created different ways to create connection among members. And, you know, because one of the things that really adds value to the work that we do is not just the learning itself, but the connections that we make as a result of the learning and how we apply it and some innovative ways that we continue with it, that we move it forward. And so we call that NAPE member engagement. And certainly there will be other opportunities where I will go into a lot more detail on what that looks like. But member engagement, just for the sake of this meeting as we close out, is an opportunity for members like you to connect and to encourage other members to explore collaborative ways to improve the day-to-day equity work while making progress around underlying root causes. And so this moment that we just shared was one of those opportunities to encourage collaboration, to improve the day-to-day work that we do. And Kathy's offered many, many different examples. And I'm sure those of you who are on this call and those who may be listening to this recording can think of other examples. And so this moment is an opportunity for us to share that and to inspire and encourage others. And so we do that through these 1 hour, 1 day plus, and 6 month plus engagement. And the 1 hour version is what we're just going through now. We're almost at that hour. These are monthly member meetings, part of a series that begins in the fall and concludes in the spring. Our final meeting will be in March, and I will share out the date on that. And you'll get more information around it, but that will be a preview of the National Summit, which is our day plus connections, which are personal in-person events, which include things like the National Summit. And for many of us, our NAPE origin story pre-COVID was coming to the summit or hearing about the summit and realizing that you're not alone in this work, that you're part of a broad community of folks who have a similar interest and are using their Perkins funds and other allocated funds to participate. And so this is one very key important part of what we do. And so if you haven't already registered for the conference or the pre-conference, you still have that opportunity. And then we have something which are 6 months plus, which are long-term opportunities for you to engage with other members. And those include working with NAPE committees. And that would include things like what Kathy mentioned, working with the NAPE Executive Committee. She is the chair of member services. And there are other NAPE committees that any member, whether they're an affiliate, an individual, or a state member, can participate on and work with other members around specific interests. So, and affinities. So these are long-term projects, and you'll hear more about that, but I just wanted to let you know that there are many opportunities to engage, and I want to plant that seed with you all on the call that here's an opportunity, and it's a value add. The more we contribute to the pie, the bigger the pie is, and the more we can enjoy from that pie. So, I'm going to end things here, but before I do, I wanted to, turn it to Joe one last time. If there was any final thought that you wanted to share or anything as it relates to the summit that you would wish to share at this time, you can do it now, or we can thank folks and move on.
Yeah, I'm not going to be too wordy. Kathy, you did a great job. What I really liked about the approach, what you learned from NAPE and how you applied it to the day-to-day practice of reducing the equity gaps through that personalized type of communication with people. And that's what I'm going to leave this webinar with. The other thing I want to say about the summit is that this is a really, truly democratic organization in that you can manifest your ideas into words and words into action as expressed in policy and also expressed in consensus of how other members may share your views on their approach and strategies in equity. The second thing, if you don't know it already, as Kathy has shared with us, just a sliver of some of the proprietary subject matter that NAPE has created that gives relevancy and also applicability to the people who need it most. In this case, sometimes it's teachers, but ultimately it's the students who benefit from this. And I wasn't aware of the great things that NAPE has done for Kathy professionally in terms of her whole career trajectory. So I didn't know that, and I've been involved with NAPE for about 3 years or so. But I mean, that's a great hats off to our organization. But one thing, as the presiding officer of this organization, this member organization, is that we want to press for a sense of community through these personalized month-to-month membership engagement meetings. And we also want to hear your voice, and we want to make sure that your voice is heard in terms of what your challenges are and what your strategies are to address inequities in your particular constituency. So I'm really proud to be a part of this organization. These are the most personable people I've met in a professional environment, probably outside of the one I currently work in right now. So it's a joy to work here, even as a volunteer. Thank you very much, Greg, for giving me the floor.
All right. Well, you're very welcome, Joe. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. So we're at time, exactly at time. And before I leave, I just want to let folks know that the National Summit for Educational Equity is April 17th through 20th at the Capitol Hilton in Washington, D.C. And early registration is occurring now up to March 1st. And it's a good opportunity to register today. So we'll learn a little bit more and dive a little deeper into a preview of the summit, as well as some of the things that are occurring with the pre-summit, where you can test drive some of the NAPE curriculum that Kathy has mentioned. So thank you again for your time. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody on this call, and you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Greg, for organizing this. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Great.